About this now with Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She's a Democrat from California, and she serves as Chief Deputy Minority Whip and is also on the Financial Services and Judiciary Committees. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, listen, first of all, we want to talk about Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He's accusing the Democrats of not being willing to compromise. Take a quick listen.
Republicans have stepped out of our comfort zone, and yet we remain at an impasse, leading us to ask why. Because a vocal minority on the hard left continues to argue to leaders of their party, from the president on down, that Democrats in Washington should do absolutely nothing about short-term or long-term spending problems.
So, Congresswoman, he says that the Republicans are outside their comfort zone. Are Democrats also out of their comfort zone? Is everything on the table, not just Medicaid and Medicare, but also Obamacare?
The president has made it abundantly clear that he's prepared to compromise if, in fact, the Republicans understand that we have to raise taxes on the richest 1% or so in this country. They're not willing to do that. Basically, what they're saying is we can, get the resources that we need, the revenue, rather, that we need by closing loopholes and some reforms, but they're not willing to deal with the tax rate. That's no starter. We have to have all of those tax cuts that were afforded to them by the Bush administration on the table. We've got to increase those tax rates. And so they don't have a credible proposal on the table. And we are, and the president is willing to compromise and to talk about cuts in discretionary spending, if in fact we can get started with understanding we have to have the revenue in order to have a credible compromise.
Well, at the same time, though, when you talk about a credible proposal, both sides probably think that their proposals are the ones that are credible. If the Republicans are willing to take a couple of steps towards the middle, why not the Democrats? Why not say, well, here's what we are willing to shave? Because if you say, well, show me yours before I show you mine, nobody's going to get anywhere.
Well, as a matter of fact, you have not seen the Republicans come with a credible proposal willing to do anything. Many of them are still bound by the Norquist pledge that they made. We see a few talking about perhaps stepping away from it, but the fact of the matter is Grover Norquist has challenged them and basically called Peter King a weasel for even talking about compromising with that tax proposal. And so you haven't seen any credible proposal from the Republicans willing to step forward to deal with the revenue issue.
What's interesting, and we talk about Grover Norquist basically saying no taxes, no taxes. But now Simpson Bowles, the Republican and the Democrats, 2 years ago, they came up with a plan. It is now being talked about again. This is 2 years later. All these issues have been on the table for a very long time.
That's right.
What is the holdup, though? What is the holdup? Is there still this intransigence that nobody can get past?
Well, the real holdup, in my estimation, is this. You cannot talk about dealing with our deficit. You cannot talk about how you run this country without talking about credible revenue. And if, in fact, you want to continue to give tax breaks to the richest people in this country, then you can't get started with a credible proposal for compromise. You've got to start there. And when that is done, then you can talk about entitlement and what can you do with a credible proposal to reduce entitlements. But you can't do that until you talk about how you're going to fund a defense and not increase revenue. With the cliff that we're faced with, we're talking about maybe a 50% reduction in the Defense Department. And so you have to talk about how you're going to pay for all of this.
And lastly, what's so interesting is we're talking about fiscal cliff. We're talking about an avalanche. We're talking about, an austerity bomb. This is very strong language. They're almost very scary words. But the American public is not going to accept anything short of some sort of a compromise. Are those words being sort of floated out there simply to manage expectations, possibly?
Well, you know, the press has basically coined the fiscal cliff and promoted the idea of this catastrophic position that the Congress finds itself in. I think that what the public is looking for is they're looking for reasonable, sensible legislators to talk about what is possible. They're looking for both sides to be willing to compromise. But one thing we know for sure, the president has a mandate. The people have spoken and they have said they want everybody to pay their fair share of taxes. They don't want the middle class and working people to have to bear the burden of the cost of government without the very, very rich paying their fair share. And that is at the top of this agenda, and it has to be dealt with.
Okay, Congressman Maxine Waters, the Democrat from California, thank you so much. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.